right over there. Here's a nice chair. You want a nice chair? Dad,
Yeah.
or if you want to grab one of each of those things too, for the different stuff. Can you see me if I sit here? No. Good, how are you?
Thanks for printing all this material today.
I like wasting paper, clearly.
We got one, two,
No,
three,
this is
four,
helping
five,
agriculture and
seven,
tree
8, 9,
farmers.
10.
And it creates
And then-
jobs, it's good for the environment.
I counted them.
Oh.
So it's a few.
Down
I've
one.
been wrong before.
Oh, we have 12.
There's a cake missing.
Take it off.
Oh, okay. 12.
Just be right there.
Right.
You just hold it.
The birds and buckwheat lady.
No, but.
Bring it.
No.
Birds and buckwheat.
The one who was president before Tom. Oh, Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Oh,
Yeah.
Stephanie, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7.
Sorry.
Last month was the first time I've ever seen everybody here.
Yeah.
When I looked, I said, oh, no, we have.
Put it on this.
Stipulate, because we really didn't start, right?
No, you didn't start.
Imagine it's got a bigger organization.
It works, right?
Oh, you can bring water with me? Oh, okay.
I do.
I thought it was a sign I read that said
That's
no.
the sunroom.
Oh.
We did it.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not allowed to have water.
No, you can. That was the Sutton room. We have a sign at the Sutton room, no water and drinks and
That's
stuff
it,
like that.
have to have a.
Yeah. Right.
But if we have a meeting there,
You know, and you lopside your picture like in your email, that means you're in
Oh, my
the
goodness.
authority position. So the more tilt, the higher the authority.
Oh, really?
We kind of correlated it at work for fun, and then somebody caught on to that and put their image sideways.
Okay. Someone took mine and added a, red fedora and started telling everyone I was Carmen Sandiego.
Oh, geez.
And I was like, wait, how do I get it back?
How do I-
You
During the,
never know where you are, so.
during the remote year, my students would add like Starbucks to their photos. For like, I appreciate the creativity.
Okay.
Okay. So you guys, if you need to talk, just like lean forward. One of these days I'll have a real setup.
This is real.
This is a perfecto.
Pretty good. You do great, Kate.
Can you hear us? Who are you talking to? Peabody TV, can you hear us?
That wasn't Jim Palmer.
It was not.
Okay.
I think we're ready.
All right. We're ready when you are, Peabody TV. All right. So the April Library Trustee meeting is,
Hold on, let me start the webinar.
Recording in progress.
Now we gotta be-
all right. So our April Library Trustee Board of Trustee meeting is called to order, and we can do a roll call.
Peter Bakula,
Present.
Stephanie Dallaire. Present. Francis Calucci. Raza Calucci here. John McAllister.
Here.
Stephanie Najjar. Kate O'Brien.
Here.
Thomas Pappas.
Present.
Ann Quinn. Here. Richard Truhan.
Here.
Jennifer Smith. Here. Tyler Pond. Katrina Vassallo. Here.
All right. Can I have a motion approval of the minute? Oh, actually, we have no one here for public, and there's no one in the join for public comment.
I think you make an official call for it.
All right. Is there any public comments online or? No. All right. So can I have approval for the March minutes?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Or comment about the staffing and how amateur public services librarian Karen Janice is retiring, and I just wondered if we should do some kind of a letter of commendation
Sure.
from the trustees or something.
We're going to do a staff going away party for her, like a retirement party for her later in May, but if the
Oh.
trustees wanted to send anything as a recognition of her, like 30, I'll get you her exact
We
years
could
of
maybe
service.
do it in May.
Sure. That May, yeah.
All right, and we have no receipt of communication, so on to the director's report.
Hello, everybody. Good evening and happy April. Staffing. We are fully staffed right now, except for one empty part-time aide position. So please send any qualified applicants our way. Senior South Branch Librarian Amy Titus.
The concert,
She'll,
too early, because the door's locked.
it starts at 7. Yep, she opens up closer to 7. She opens up closer to 7, closer to 6:45. The artists are still setting up in there. Yep.
Came up the only.
Senior South Branch Librarian Amy Titus continues her studies, and Public Services Librarian Sharon Janis completes her degree this semester. I'm requesting the approval of tuition reimbursement for both of their spring semester courses. Our next all-staff training is on Tuesday, June 20th, and we will be conducting a de-escalation training to ensure that staff are prepared to handle and calm tense situations that may arise in the library. Building. The South Branch LED light conversion has begun, and it's happening on Fridays as the South Branch is closed and therefore empty and easier for the city electricians to complete their work. It should be done by the end of April. When the project is completed, I will be requesting quotes for the same LED conversion at the West Branch Library. And then our fine arts and historical object collection appraisal by the Winston Art Group will begin with an initial consultation later this month, and I will provide more information as the process moves forward. Programs and initiatives. This year's George Peabody Medal Awards will take place in the Sutton Room on Wednesday, May 24th at 6 p.m. and will celebrate the highest achieving members of this year's Peabody Veterans Memorial High Class of 2023, and will include speeches and music by the high school chorale ensemble. Senior Adult Programming Librarian Gabrielle Toth reports that Harvard professor Theo Harris returns next week for a 6-week class reading The Tempest and Twelfth Night. After a successful puzzle swap at the South Branch, the program will begin at the main library as well. Program attendance in general continues to increase with special interest in crafting programs and concerts. The Brooksby Village pop-up library has been going very well. There are about 75 people on the monthly list for holds deliveries, and there is now a dedicated book drop for the library there as well. Senior Teen Librarian Allison Bridgewater reports that the Teen Room, and in particular the Teen Volunteer Program, are popular and busy. Mental health programming has begun with weekly yoga and the upcoming baking program. She will be visiting Higgins Middle School this Wednesday in order to contribute to their literacy initiative for the month of April. And Senior Librarian Bridgewater will donate recently weeded books to students, as well as bring new books for students to check out. Senior Children's Librarian Jennifer Usovitz reports that the Children's Library will be doing a 3-program-long art therapy series with Art Relief out of Waltham, using grant funds from the Peabody Cultural Council Mental Health Grant in April and May. In June, the Plantmobile from the Mass Horticultural Society will be stopping by for a STEM program on edible plants for children. The weekly music and movement program has been very successful, and the baby, toddler, preschool, and pajama story times have been very popular. In the future, the Children's Library is looking to host a children's yoga program in the afternoons at the West Branch and a Read to a Therapy Dog program at the main library. The Children's Department has been working hard to offer the community a program almost every day of the month. Senior South Branch Librarian Amy Titus reports that the South Branch Library had excellent attendance for 3 programs in March, a collage workshop with local artist Jessica Furtado, the first toddler story time, and the community puzzle swap. Another puzzle swap is being planned for September. For spring school vacation week, Animal Adventures Family Zoo and Rescue Center from Bolton, Mass. Will be visiting the South Branch on April 18th, and they will have a sunflower planting program for children on April 19th. Senior West Branch Librarian Amory Thomas reports that the West Branch Library's teen room is finished with getting up-to-date furniture and a curated collection, and is waiting on the new computers to be delivered. The teen area has seen an increase in use among teens, more students coming after school to study and look at books, and the average attendance for the Taco Volunteer Group continues to increase. Senior Librarian Thomas will be working with Senior Teen Librarian Bridgewater in the new future to plan more teen-oriented programs and events for the summer. The West Branch has hosted a few small children's programs that have been very successful, with high demand for more children's programming, especially with school soon to let out for the summer. Birds and Bubbly. Our first annual Peabody Library Foundation Birds and Bubbly fundraiser will take place on Friday, April 28th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the main library. The PIL owns one of only 119 remaining original copies of Audubon's 200-year-old Birds of America prints and works every year to conserve these prints for generations to come with donations. Birds and Bubbly will feature selected framed prints that have been conserved and those that have yet to be conserved, and will include speeches and information about the conservation process and the history of these prints. Enjoy hors d'oeuvres, desserts, beer, wine, and bubbly for those 21 plus as we celebrate the PIL's history and support its future. Tickets are $50 per person and available for purchase through Eventbrite and at every library location. And you can learn more at the website www.pbdlibrary.org/birds. Sponsorship opportunities are also available, and I can provide you with more information as needed. I have flyers for your convenience, and please feel free to take some to post in local businesses and anywhere you would like to promote this event. The library is also regularly posting ads for this event, so feel free to either share the library's posts or create your own post using the same graphics that I can send out. I also have printed invitations and envelopes that you may take to mail or deliver to those who would like to personally invite. Budget. I've included our current budget for your consideration. The notable line items are the high percentage of expenditures due to higher electric and natural gas costs. You can see on the budget, that is, Russ, our bookkeeper includes the objective for 9 months is basically 75% of everything spent, and those are just higher because prices for everything have gone up right now. I submitted my request my requested library budget for FY24 to the city and await union contract ratification to confirm salary raises, which are projected to be a 3% cost of living increase and increases in longevity. So that is this other handy dandy spreadsheet that I sent to the city. My request for level funding for expenses and a 10.57% increase in salaries for an overall requested department on 7.82% over FY23 due to number one, the expected 3% COLA raises, and also I forgot to include there the longevity raises. Number two, a request to change the soon-to-be vacant public services librarian into a senior position so that it may take on more marketing and outreach responsibilities while being of the appropriate level to manage the public services department. And this position did exist until the spring of 2019 when we had budget issues for FY20, which included the elimination of the senior public services librarian. So this would be shifting back into that, having a manager for that department that now technically has no manager. The request for a slight raise for the assistant director position to bring it in line with the other noble assistant director salaries. And finally, the big one, the request to add a full-time children's librarian for the West Branch Library. I expect to begin meetings with the mayor, finance department, and HR in May, and I have included copies of my proposed library FY24 budget for reference, which is what you have in front of you. And then new business policy. This evening, I have provided the proposed new meeting room and bulletin board policies and request that they be discussed and voted upon during new business. And that is the end for the.
Thanks. Any discussion or questions for the director?
Yes, sir.
Just going back here, where it's some on this page.
Sure.
For the new position.
Yeah.
The discussion of that new position for doing the outreach.
Yes.
and stuff. Which one is that here?
So that would be going in line with this, making the public services librarian a senior public services librarian. That would allow that person more off-desk time to handle more marketing and outreach. It wouldn't be a position that's solely dedicated to that, but it makes sense. When I had that position, that was my role as well. I did marketing and outreach as well as managing that department. So it's kind of going back to where we were, but I think it's a good move for that department.
Somewhere.
Yes, absolutely.
And up-to-date furniture and computers.
Mhm.
This progress too, getting our libraries better.
Yep.
The other question I have on Birds and Bubbly.
Mhm.
What is the expectation? How many people do you think we're gonna have?
We're hoping for around 100 at least.
100,
Yep.
okay, about 100.
Yep.
What is Taco Volunteer?
That's the Teen Advisory and Community Organization. I started it when I was the teen librarian, and it basically was Taco Tuesdays. So the kids would come volunteer for an hour every Tuesday at the main, and we would give them tacos one Tuesday a month. And then when Senior Librarian Thomas moved to the West Branch, she started doing Taco Tuesdays at the West Branch. There had never been a teen volunteer group there, and now there is. And then Allison, Senior Librarian Bridgewater, here at the main, does Taco Thursdays. So we have two simultaneous teen volunteer groups that meet every week.
Well attended?
Very well attended.
Okay.
Yes.
And also just a comment here, positive comment and continued positive comments. Great first on the South Branch with Amy Titus, with what's going on there, the puzzles. And
Yep.
Jessica Furtado. toddler story time. That's very nice too for our community and folks in that area. And can you tell me a little bit more? I'm interested, doesn't mean anything here, but what is read to a therapy dog?
So it's a very common thing is that libraries, basically trained therapy dogs come, and it's an opportunity for kids to practice their reading skills, reading to something that is, not reading to a stuffed animal, but not reading to somebody judgmental or who's going to correct them. It's a very calming thing for kids, and it just builds
Sure.
their reading confidence.
Do they do that anywhere else?
They do it. We used to do it here before COVID. I want to say we did it.
Okay.
A lot of libraries do it though. It's
But we
pretty.
didn't invent it because it's really.
We did not invent it.
Okay.
It's a wonderful
Yeah,
program though. I know. It's a
really
wonderful
good.
program.
Right, and also again, the Allison Bridgewater here at the teen room, there's a lot of, it's very popular and busy on the volunteer program.
Yep.
How do you get them to don't want to be in this? It's like, oh,
So all kids need a certain number of hours every year for the high school. It's required for the high school. And so they have, I'm not sure do you know what the required number?
I think it's 10.
Yeah, it's not a huge number, but ours allows kids to have a guaranteed sort of volunteering because it's an hour every week and they can show up whenever it works for them. But she has them working on smaller projects like shelving in the teen room, but also bigger projects like planning teen programming and weeding collections and helping her suggest for the collections that she oversees. So it really is a way for them to both get their required hours and really take ownership over their own spaces. Like at the West, we put in some new teen furniture there and computers, and that was based on requests of the kids that were doing the volunteer group. And they said, the space just really isn't working for us. We want to spend more time here, but as volunteers, it's kind of uncomfortable. So it's allowing the kids to have more ownership over their own space and make decisions about the places that they spend time.
okay, from this report, I'm just picking up that we're getting more vibrant in the community.
Yep,
It
absolutely.
seems to be more positive this month report. And just one engineering question, probably told us already. LED lights.
Yes.
Where are they being fitted?
The South Branch, yeah, they're having to redo all of the sockets because it's a different fitting.
Internal, external, is that,
I don't
okay,
the correct way, I hope.
I'll take a drive.
The city electricians are working on it. And they're basically just taking out every single current. It's a drop ceiling there, so it's easier to fit in the new sockets there. And the lights are, they have 3 settings. And so they had the staff there choose what setting, and they went for the middle setting. That was the correct. It was a very comfortable lighting for them, but the whole place is going to be way brighter and way cheaper to light, and more consistent.
Very
so.
good. And thank you for your time and your patience, and
Yeah, of course.
there's stick with it.
You said you're looking for, to fill the aide position.
Yes,
Said many qualified applicants.
yes.
What are the qualifications?
So it's for a part-time aide position. Those positions work an average of 14 hours a week, and it includes working at 2 of our 3 locations. So here in the West or here in the South, some people work at all 3 based on needs. And every position, it's basically 3 4-hour shifts during the week. And one of those is required to be an evening 5 to 9 shift for somebody at one of our 3 locations. And then it also requires every other Saturday for 4 hours. So every other Saturday from 9 to 1 or from 1 to 5. And then every, I think, 5th or 6th Sunday for 4 hours, but they get paid time and a half.
What do they do?
They're mainly at the public services desk, so they're frontline staff that are answering phones, that are checking in books, they're helping patrons find stuff. But they're primarily when we had our budget crises and staffing issues, they were heartbreaking to lose because they are the frontline staff people see most often, and they are doing that most common day-to-day person-to-person interaction. They're the people that you'll see at any desk when you walk in greeting you. They're the most visible staff that we have. So I think the official requirements are high school. I don't even know I think it requires a high school degree, but that's it. It's basically, being familiar with a computer, because a lot of this is Microsoft based and computer based, and having a basic understanding of computers and technology, but really a focus on customer service. It's not a job where you're going to be, reading on the job and sitting there reading a book. This is like a heavy duty customer service job, like it would be at any retail store or restaurant. But it's in a nice, calm, hopefully positive environment.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you adjust the attendance?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Kate, I had one
Want you to get credit.
on the birds and bubbly.
Yes.
Bill owns one of only 119 remaining original. So there's only 119 remaining sets
Yes.
everywhere.
Yes.
We have one of,
Yep.
okay. I just wanted to
Absolutely.
share on that.
Can I have a motion to accept the director's report?
Motion to accept.
A second? All in favor? Opposed? All right. The report of committees. So Audubon,
To report,
Building and Grounds,
nothing further than the director's report.
Personnel,
Nothing further than the director's report.
Policy and Procedures. All right. Stephanie's not here, but Kate shared about the Birds and Bubbly that the foundation is running.
Yes, and just if I can add to that a little bit,
Yeah.
that evening, we would love to have people help us. People are gonna be getting here, we close at 1 o'clock on Fridays, so some people are gonna be getting here as early as 1, help do the physical setup and then changing the parking things later. Because we're gonna be, the main room, we're going to be moving all of the foundation purchased those big, beautiful bookshelves down there on wheels so they could be moved out. We haven't moved them out in probably 5 or 6 years, but we're gonna be moving all of those and clearing out the room to have food down there and the drinks down there and prints down there and up in the Sutton room. So it's gonna be physical moving and also setting up food and champagne and, or the Prosecco and everything. So if you would like to help out that evening, even just to prep for it, but then become guests at 6 o'clock, please, I'll be sending out another email kind of getting a head count of who's going to be able to be helping that night. So just please think about, I hope you'll all be coming, and if you can come early to help set up, that would be helpful also. It's going to be a delightful evening, if I do say so myself.
Great. The Peabody Historical Society, Anne. Can I have a motion to accept the reports of the committees? All in favor?
I
All right, new business. So we have a few things to vote on. If I can have motions for those.
make a motion to approve Amy Titus and Sharon Janice request for funds for completing their college programs.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. And we have, so Kate, do you want to speak to the
Sure.
policy?
So 2 policies that have been a long time coming, and I apologize, the meeting room policy is we'll do that one first because that's the hardest one. This is taking a long time to get right. This took a lot of meeting with the assistant city solicitor, make sure that we had a policy that was in keeping with all of the basic existing case law on how the First Amendment applies to public libraries and our meeting rooms. And the gist of this is that once a public library is not required to open up its rooms for outside reservations. Once a library does, it becomes something called a limited expert now. It becomes something called a limited public forum, which means that basically any group can come and request to use one of our rooms, and we under the First Amendment have to provide them that right. So there's no saying no first because of, like their opinion or their beliefs or their sponsorship or their group or anything. Basically, like everybody gets a blanket yes, provided that they follow the basic rules listed in this, which are like head count and keeping the exits open and not closing any doors and making it open to all, and basic requirements are in here. And so we just wanted to make sure that this was clear that any group that does request to use one of our rooms, it says here clearly, the use of library meeting rooms does not imply the library's board of trustees or the city of Peabody's sponsorship or endorsement of any ideas expressed in the meeting, nor of the goals, objectives, or ideals of the person or organization using library facilities. In the past, we've had a lot of libraries have had kind of squishy rules that hadn't been paid a lot of attention to, and we are making sure that ours are completely like following the law and like doing everything we need to do and are supportable and legally defensible. Basically, we are still going to be requesting that everybody fill out a meeting room use agreement form ahead of time. So before a group can request a room, they're going to have to fill out this Google form to tell us information about the group. And then Al and I will go over it and make sure everything is fine. And there's most important, we need a contact information and the person sponsoring it to know who's responsible for the group. And then once we give them the go ahead, they can go through our system and try to book a room. The goal of this also is even though we have 3 branches, we essentially only have 1 programming room for everybody at each location. And even though the main library is huge, this is really the only open programming space here, which is kind of absurd, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. The Sutton room is obviously not open for public events. Our children's programming room in the basement is no longer in use because it's not an appropriate space. So this is where we do all of our children's program. This is where we do all of our adult program. This is a very heavily used space, and the branches as well. Their community rooms are very heavily used spaces. So I am able to essentially block out the calendar for times that we generally do our programming, which means that the times that are going to be available for meeting rooms are not going to be every time, because we had a problem a lot where we would try to schedule last minute programming at a normal programming time, but it was booked by an outside group. And so then we were kept out of our own spaces. And the goal of these spaces is they are primarily for library programming. So I'm going to be going through the calendar tomorrow, assuming this passes today, and making a calendar available to the public to book rooms, keeping aside the times at each location that we generally use for programming, just to make sure our stuff fits first, essentially. Which means that like evenings are going to be in really short supply, because there's a program in here basically every single night of the week. And there's a program at the West Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and a program at the South every Thursday night. If you look at our calendar, like we're doing a ton of programming right now. And it was starting to be kind of difficult to fit everything in, because we need more than one programming space, but that's neither here nor there. So availability will be limited based on the library taking priority. You can just, yes.
I think last time you talked about this, you suggested that you might decide to not not make the spaces available
because of the programming. I think that I would like to make these still available to the community, because they are really valuable. They are a valuable space, and they are really valued by the community. And it's disappointing looking at. It's a good thing knowing how much program we're doing and how much programming is coming up, that we need the spaces so much. It is disappointing that we aren't able to give everybody full availability. But this is, I think, the only happy medium to block it up for library. There's not going to be other availability open, but so it's better than nothing. So because I get requests every week to book our meeting spaces, so this is kind of the best we can do. So you can read all of the rules there. Basically, we don't provide our own audio video, so this space, we don't let people use this TV and monitor, because there's no liability then. If we don't want people to be liable for breaking stuff and having to pay for it, we'd rather just keep it simple. People have to provide their own stuff. We don't do any marketing for people. We don't send press releases. We are not the contact organization. They are just using our space. It's pretty.
Okay. It
yeah.
says maximum occupancy of a meeting room
Yes.
is found on the website.
Yes.
What is that?
So on the, I'm not sure off the top of my head. I think it's like 20 or 30 per room, because they're pretty small. I mean, you can see this room is not large. It's all on that page of the website is pretty disabled right now, just to make it not confusing to people, but it's all on there. But I think that occupancies are like 12 or 30, 20 or 30 in each room.
I have a question.
Yes.
The only thing I'm kind of questioning, or to be honest, I disagree with, is if the same group organization fails to show up for 2 meetings in a row.
Yep.
And does not call to cancel, all future reservations are forfeited for 3 months.
Mhm.
First off, I think it should be 6 months at least. And I think it should be, if you fail to show up for 2 meetings in a calendar year. I mean, who's gonna miss 2 in a row? I mean,
But what
they
happens?
miss one, then they do one and they miss another, it doesn't bite. So I just think it's too,
Any?
yes,
Relax.
thank you, that's what I was looking for.
I guess
What page are you
what
on?
groups are
Page 3.
reserving the rooms?
So it's going to be a little bit different now. Before there were no limits on how often a group could request a room. And so we had turned into the, if you read every library's policies, they're not supposed to be regular meeting places. So, but we never really enforced that. So we had groups that were booking it every Monday night.
Yeah.
Or, like every Tuesday and Thursday and Tuesday and Thursday. We had groups that were really using it as their normal consistent meeting space, which is not what these rooms are meant for, because there's not enough availability to be every group's home base. So we limited it now to once a month, for a total of 12 meetings a year. So it's going to kind of change, I think. We've had condo boards that meet here before. We've had a couple like social clubs that have met here before. But I don't know how that's going to work going forward, because again, like Monday nights, there used to be a group in here every Monday night. And so we would have nowhere for the trustees if there was a concert. And so we were like meeting in like my office, basically. It felt like there was just, so by blocking out the evenings, especially here, because there's programming, it's going to limit people's being able to use our rooms, unfortunately, but it's kind of how it has to be right now.
But yeah, I mean, I just, considering what Rich said, I could see like Cub Scouts being here
Yeah.
and having to cancel 2 meetings in a row because the norovirus wasn't
Yeah.
interesting. Like,
I mean,
that's not fair to them.
it does allow me to take,
to hear.
I think there's something at the end that I can kind of, there's
Your discretion?
at my
Written appeal,
discretion,
yeah.
yeah, and you can like make a written appeal to all these things. Yeah, there's like on the top of page 5 or the middle of page 5, it's request for an exception for the meeting room policy should be made by the user in writing and submitted to the library director who will refer to the board of library trustees for consideration. So there are exceptions that can be made if something like that happens.
So you're okay?
So it doesn't call it cancel, they call it cancel.
Right.
Yeah.
We're talking about if people, because we do frequently have groups that will book a room and my custodians at the branches especially will set up like 30 chairs and tables and then it's a no-show. And it's very frustrating for my staff and it's a waste of time and
Yeah.
we are strapped as it is. So having, it's mostly because it's a ton of staff time and at some point there's just regulations that have to be followed. So if people call to cancel, that's one thing, but a no-show is really frustrating for us.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then we can't do our own programming anyway, so it's a waste of space also.
They become prohibited from rebooking at that point.
There's a limit to it. Yeah, I think it's you miss 2 meetings and you're out for 3 months.
So if my engineering team wanted to meet here once a week, can I book the whole year for like 6 o'clock on Monday nights? Or
You
something?
cannot. No, you can only book once a month and you can only book, I think, 2 or 3 months out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and key to this is I do have people frequently that contact me. I've had one last week, a business, we need to take a private call, private Zoom, can we book it here? And I said, well, that's not going to really meet your needs because these are public open meeting law and public spaces like this says that all of these meetings need to be public. So anybody can come into our trustees meeting right now, but if there's like an AA meeting, you're going to have to make the decision. Doors have to stay open. Anybody can come in. You can't prohibit anybody. You can't kick people out. You can't say, no, you're not welcome. So there are a lot of groups where these rules and the nature legally of what we do here just is not going to fit the needs of their group because it needs to be a private call. It needs to be a private group. It's something that people can't come unless they paid a fee. So the nature of that meeting of a limited public forum limits a lot of groups as well. Because you can't come and take a private, you can come and take a call here, but if somebody wants to come in and hang out and listen, legally they can, so.
Is
Yeah.
there a block of time limit for each?
There's not, I think that the limitations we're placing based on our programming kind of takes care of that. But we're not putting a block of time limit on it because also there are going to be some days when it's available for 2 hours and some days for 6 hours. And if somebody wants to take it for 6 hours, they're welcome to it. I don't want to put even more limitations because this is already going to be pretty limited based on our spaces, so.
Can I have a motion? Oh,
Just a comment. So you did a lot of work on this. I know you did. And it's a lot of pages too, and some thought that went into it. You work with a city solicitor, right? And you have a lot of resources in the state and the library
Yes.
system. But you still have to work with our city solicitors
Yes.
because you couldn't find what you needed out there. Does this thing become now something that the rest of the state libraries would use?
So a lot of this honestly is kind of boilerplate, copied and pasted is not the right term for it, but a lot of this language is pretty consistent across libraries. A lot of this is like, why reinvent the wheel? Because the same policies apply everywhere because we all follow the same rules.
Right.
So it could, I know that I put together policies recently with talking to other library directors, like, what do you say here and what do you say there? And we kind of work together and all of our policies kind of eventually coalesce to be the same, essentially,
Okay.
which is a good thing. I think there's consistency city to city and library to library. This was worked on a bunch of other libraries whose policies we thought sounded reasonable. This is working with the assistant city solicitor and the research she did into specifically her help was in case law, which is like, in different Supreme Court cases that have involved public libraries or public forums, what was allowed, what did the Supreme Court say? No, there is this much existing Supreme Court case law about this kind of stuff. It's actually really fascinating.
So that added to this policy?
Yep. Just making sure that like little tweaks in language, like technically we can't say that, but we can say that. We just need to make sure a policy that everybody can follow and that the city, there's never going to be a situation in which we make a statement based on our policy that is not legally sound and that can cause issues. So we feel, and the assistant city solicitor, we feel very confident that this is a policy that works for everybody.
It shows. Thank you.
can I have a motion to approve the meeting room policy?
I make a motion to approve the meeting room policy as presented by the director.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Right. Okay, the next one is the bulletin boards. In the past, again, one bulletin board per location. In the past, it's been kind of a free for all of like anything people would give us for a bulletin board, it would go up, but we would also make calls. Well, that's, Joe's advertising for his business. We can't put that up. It turns out, learning more about this, that as soon as you open up a bulletin board to the community for community use, it becomes a limited public forum, just like our meeting rooms do. So essentially, if Jill would come and say, hey, like advertising my business with the little tabs you pull off, we would have to put that up. We also are coming in a problem where our bulletin boards are not big, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the city, whether it's sample ballots or voting information or school project information or the rec department or the children's museum. We're getting a lot of marketing for city departments and city goings on, and it's really a great way for the city to get. I see the bulletin boards outside my office, and I see people regularly stop to look at the bulletin board and see what's there. And also, even though we put signs for our own library events all around the library, people still go to that in the awkward hallway to look at. So we decided that in order to allow the library and the city to more effectively get our message out, we should not have these bulletin boards be community bulletin boards any longer, because there just isn't room for anything, and focus really mostly on city events. So any ballots coming out, anything from any other boards, because there's board notices and agendas if necessary, basically anything that's city of Peabody based. So we're only going to post stuff that's library things or that come from a city department or city official. That means we can put up information about the schools and open houses and stuff. Just limiting it to things that we know will be useful to people, and there's going to be hopefully enough room for everything. So that's all this says, that it's now focused on the city of Peabody. They're not public limited forums, they're just city of Peabody.
Do you expect a lot of pushback on this?
No.
Okay.
No, our policy before has always been people would drop stuff off and we would say, we'll review it, and if there's room, we'll put it up. And I think people were kind of pleased that their stuff would go up.
Mhm.
I think there are going to be some organizations that even I wish we could still put up that just aren't going to quite fit under this before, but I think they're going to understand what the goal is. And we can certainly, share things on Facebook and push information out other ways. So
So is it just city hall stuff or anything that's going on in the city, like garden?
So it's just going to be city hall based stuff. So city departments, and that's why there are going to be some organizations that technically don't fit anymore.
Okay.
But we get a ton of stuff. Like I got something from the rec department about some classes, and I didn't have any room to post them. I was like, I really should be, because they're a fellow department and they serve everybody. So it's going to be limited to city hall stuff. So city departments and city officials.
So the leaf pickup.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wood stuff.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Can I have a motion to approve the bulletin board policy?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
And through the chair, Casey, you just, before we get too far by it, you would also, I'm trying to read this correctly, request for a slight raise for the assistant director.
Yes.
Are you looking for a motion for that?
No, that's all.
Okay, fine.
The budget's also for the city. Basically, the difference between my salary and the assistant director's salary is a lot more than another city's. Basically, I'm on par with other city library directors, and she is not on par with other library assistant directors. She's about $30,000 less than me, and only like $12,000 now more than our highest senior staff member. And I also was doing interesting research that she does all of the scheduling and payroll for all of our staff, which means she does the scheduling and payroll for only one of 15 libraries in the entire state that have 3 or more branches. And that includes like Somerville and Cambridge that have gazillions. So she is doing a ton of work that was not, and before she took over as assistant director, somebody else was doing payroll and keeping track of vacations, and everybody was doing their own scheduling. She has taken on a ton of more organizational and bookkeeping work than anybody had before, and needs to be paid
Bluntly.
better. Not, and she,
Ask if you needed a motion.
I mean, like, if you want to make it happen, that's great, but it's only a slight raise, but it's enough to get her to a solid starting point. Then going forward with cost of living upgrades, increases, it'll be a little bit better.
All right. Any unfinished business?
I think we needed to officially.
Yeah.
Okay, did the email vote?
Paid by email.
Oh, yes. So the public commenting policy we have voted, but can I have a motion?
Do we read these again or just make a motion? Okay.
I think we can, because we reviewed it, unless there's discussion or question from anyone.
I have a question. Grace, when you put the public comments,
Mhm.
or to you put it right after.
Right.
See the communication something. Would it make more sense to put the comments where in the agenda of the issue is likely to be?
I-
mean, if we're even just talking about, say, the meeting room policy.
So I think that the point of the public comment policy being on the agenda like this is that it is kind of detached from the rest of the meeting. It's not people directly speaking to like concerns they have or things they want to say. It's not really, it's kind of a separate section to the meeting, and people need to email me ahead of time to get on the list. And it's pretty common. I've been looking at other library agendas to do it right at the beginning of the meeting so people can say their piece and then we can move on to the rest of the meeting. So they get to be front and center at the rest of the meeting, and then we move on to the rest of the agenda.
So they'll know ahead of time what's on the agenda.
Yep.
And if there's something they want to speak to,
Mhm.
they speak to it then.
Yep.
Not while we're discussing.
Correct. Because the public comment also, everybody that would sign up for it would get up to 3 minutes to speak, and in which they're just speaking to you and there's no response back. There's no discussion. There's no back and forth. It's just people are, voicing whatever they want to bring voice to, and then it's done after 3 minutes. It's not really, there's no discussion to be had.
Not intended as a dialogue.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not a dialogue. It's not a discussion.
And that's how other departments, like in the city, handle it also.
Yeah.
Was there any
Well, I'm
other?
thinking about city council, for example, if they're doing a special permit or something, and they bring up the subject, and then the whoever wishes to speak in favor or against, they do it then.
Oh, I was thinking of school committee. They do it at the beginning too.
I don't
So
think this isn't meant to be, the public having an opportunity to speak in favor or against something. They don't,
Isn't that why they're,
right, but they don't have a say. And when you guys are voting on policies or something, it's the trustees voting. It's not taking, they don't have a vote.
We can bring issues
know.
to this board as our constituents bring them to us, and then we can introduce them to this board, right? So they do have a voice. We represent them that way too.
I think that having at the beginning, it stays consistent with other boards and with other cities as well. And it allows them to have to take the first part of the meeting to say what they need to say. And there's also a way that's also the section in which if we do get any
Receipt of
received
communication.
communication, that will also be read then and entered into the record then as well.
Any other discussion about that piece? Can I have a motion to accept?
Motion. Do
Sec-
do we need to
Second.
have these read into the record? I don't know how they're gonna be captured into the record.
But the policies?
No, I'm sorry, we're talking about the, full business and motions that were not done online.
What other motions were there?
There's some motions online at the public policies. Do they need to be read out loud about what those motions are?
Well,
I thought it
isn't
was
the
just approving.
approving the public comment policy?
Right,
Do you have any?
I didn't get that. Okay.
So we're making a motion to accept the public comment
I
policy.
did read it.
Okay.
I did read it. I left it at the printer as I read it. Okay.
And these will go up on the website first thing tomorrow morning. These will be live on the website.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, sure. All in favor? All right.
Amy?
So you're opposing or?
No,
Oh,
abstaining.
okay. All right.
Did you get that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. We didn't
I'll
vote
do
on
it
anything
all.
else. Okay. All right. So our next meeting will be May 1st at 6:30. We'll see you all there. Actually, I hope to see you all at Birds and Bubbly before then.
Yeah, first and bubbly. I'm gonna go ahead and.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, oh, motion, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Thank you.
Let's don't discuss.